Hello, I'm Tara Brabazon and welcome to the Post 28 Chihuahua. We're at the Chihuahua Supervisor in our pernicious PhD Supervisor series. The Chihuahua Supervisor, as my wonderful husband would describe it, is all mouth, no trousers. All mouth, no trousers. So this supervisor talks a great deal. They talk a lot. They really talk a lot. Constantly, they're threatened by others and they're deeply defensive. And they approach every situation, every issue with an open mouth rather than an open mind. The Chihuahua, like the dog after which it's named, is probably the most benevolent of all the supervisors that we describe in this pernicious PhD Supervisor series. The problems that the Chihuahua expresses are their problems. They're not the student's problems. They really belong to the supervisor. So the supervisor has a lack of confidence, imposter syndrome, and what Julie Birchall has described as, quote, severe spotlight deprivation, end of quote. So in other words, they pretty desperately want to be the focus of attention. And because they haven't done too much in their career, they don't have a lot of attention on them in a really tough time for international higher education. And they bark 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 so that the attention can remain on them. All mouth, no trousers. So as always, we're going to talk about the Chihuahua, but we're doing this so that we can provide 5 strategies. And these are really good ones, can I say? Great research in this area, but 5 great strategies that you can deploy today to manage your Chihuahua supervisor. Can I also say the strategies we're talking about probably enhance all supervisory relationships. They're good ones as well. So how does the Chihuahua happen? Well, higher degree supervision is really competitive at the moment. There are very few great students like you, and students are, of course, pretty demanding. And supervisors have to compete with each other for the most talented of students. So the bowerbird supervisor has the bower, the predator supervisor uses fear and threats. Going well. But what does an early or mid-career researcher do? What does perhaps an underperforming senior scholar do to bring in the students? And the answer is they bark a lot. They bark at any movement, any other competitor, and they bark at any infringement on their territory. So this behaviour in supervisors manifests in an array of contexts. The most obvious and truly horrifying occurs in meetings. So people, all of us, desperately want a short meeting. We want a short meeting so we can get on with the rest of our lives. Let's address the agenda and get out of Dodge. Okay, but of course the Chihuahua, aware that other people are held captive in this meeting space, starts to offer all sorts of commentary about all sorts of issues and topics that have nothing to do with the actual meeting, and of course about which they know very little. So the goal of this, and meetings are great for this, the goal is to return the spotlight on to them, the attention to them, and they don't have the capacity to differentiate between on topic or off topic, or contributing to a meeting and contributing to the construction of their ego. They all seem to be the same thing. So social media was obviously made for the Chihuahua PhD supervisor. Every minor excitement is tweeted out or is put on Instagram. So let's talk about the Chihuahua. And my respects to all the Chihuahua owners out there. I know this dog has a big and loyal group of followers, and I know that. My first dog was a Chihuahua, Jamie and Jamie's mum. They only ever own Chihuahuas, okay? So I apologise if any offence is taken. But the Chihuahua is a great model and trope and metaphor for a particular way of being an academic today. So Chihuahuas, breed. They are a breed of toy dog named after the great state in Mexico of Chihuahua. Chihuahuas are companion animals and they are show dogs. Interestingly, they were a really rare breed before the start of the 20th century, and the American Kennel Club only registered the breed in 1904. Interesting, eh? So they are still the smallest breed that are recognised in international kennel clubs. They're known for their large eyes, their protruding eyeballs, like sort of a Don Knotts movie, and they've got this rounded skull. They are tiny, they're between 15 and 23 centimetres, and they weigh under 2.7 kilograms. So in Chihuahua land, the smallest is the best. Of course, all the focus is on the truly gorgeous teacup Chihuahuas. Okay, so the Chihuahua is cute, small, warm, beautiful dog. Beautiful dog. But then, breeders describe Chihuahuas as displaying, quote, above average aggression, end of quote. And that aggression is towards other people, towards other dogs, basically anything that moves and breathes. This aggression is so well known, I think, because the little dog is so gorgeous. They're so cute, and they're the archetype of the purse dog. But from this tiny little package erupts this crazy overprotectiveness and this crazy aggression. And they're known for barking. Barking a lot. They bark constantly, seemingly for no apparent cause or rationale. It is instinctual, but they bark if they are frightened. They bark to protect themselves, to protect others. They bark if they're hungry, they bark to get attention, and they bark if they are bored. So Chihuahuas have a lot of energy, right? And if they're not stimulated sufficiently during the day, they express their displeasure with this high-pitched, monotone bark. On and on and on. And let's not forget about that really pretty frightening growl as well. So Chihuahuas are intensely territorial and they are protective and they respond to any threat. And this threat could be somebody moving towards their owner, away from their owner, towards the dog, away from the dog. Movement, they bark. They also bark with separation anxiety, and that's going to be important in our strategies at the end of this post. And if you think about it, the behaviour from the Chihuahua is logical. This is rational behaviour because they are a small dog. They are a weak dog. They form, through their histories, into tight packs to protect themselves, and the barking is used to make themselves look bigger. So if you think about it, the Chihuahuas that have survived genetically to the present have that strong protection arc within themselves. And that's why the Chihuahuas do not want to be apart from their human companion, because they need protection and they want to give protection. The behaviour of the people around the Chihuahua have a huge impact on what actually occurs. So if the Chihuahua is barking for attention and then the owner yells at the Chihuahua to be quiet with varying levels of expletives, then the owner, of course, has just given the barking dog the attention that they want, right? So it's barking, you go, shh! Then the dog wanted attention and you've just given the dog that attention. So the dog has learned that the barking creates a focus and an attention, and that's a really important variable that we're going to manage when we look at the Chihuahua PhD supervisor. It's important not to reward the barking behaviour. So Chihuahuas are frustrating dogs. They can be absolutely overbearing at times. And look, it's been great. I've loved doing every week I've loved doing the research for you, but this week it's just been brilliant. And I've seen all these documentaries of this little tiny dog that's running entire households, right? So entire families are being run by this little teacup Chihuahua. It's the most amazing sociology I've ever seen. So it is important to acknowledge that Chihuahuas do need to bark. They do need to bark. That is how this tiny dog communicates, and it is the incipient yapping that needs to be addressed, that needs to be disciplined, and that's what we're going to be talking about with our Chihuahua PhD supervisor. But we need to understand why Chihuahuas are common in higher education. You're going to recognise a lot of people as we go through the session today, and the reason I think the Chihuahuas are emerging now is because higher education, universities are going through so many restructures. Basically, you make yourself a cup of coffee, the university restructures again, yep? We're all the precariat now, there's no permanence, there's no stability. So we're all living in this incredibly unstable environment, and it is a frightening environment. And of course, endlessly, the barking of our fabulousness, look at me, look there, look there. It is a way to supposedly create a strategy for survival. If the right people just look at me, if the right people just appreciate me, then I'll be safe in tough times. And sadly, that's not the case. Now, Kelly Peng and Chi-Hei Wang produced an amazing book, and there's great research this week, can I say, but they produced a great book called Emotion and Proactivity at Work. And they explored the consequences of both the pandemic and globalization on the emotional landscape of the workplace. Great book. And they argued that COVID-19 in particular has created a working environment of reactivity and fear. And this fear has created this disengagement and this endless extrinsic performance of our identity. So a corrective we can enact today is we today make a decision to focus on intrinsic motivations, and we start to be proactive ahead of the wave rather than reactive. So if we just make a decision today, let's be more intrinsic and let's be proactive. Then we create what LaBelle and Camra Morley described as, quote, love this, quote, drivers of self-directed behaviour, end of quote. Drivers of self-directed behaviour. So the Chihuahua encourages outward validation and attention. Look at me, look at me, look at me. So actually life works so much better, let alone intellectual life, works so much better if we are proactive and we are silent. And that silence and that reflection enables us to formulate clear goals. Therefore, we're going to talk about how to keep you positive, proactive, centered, and reflexive through our 5 stages to manage the Chihuahua Supervisor. To just stop the barking and then funnel or channel the attention onto your thesis. Here we go. Number 1. Claim your space as a student and ensure that this space is separate from the Chihuahua. Okay, the Chihuahua Supervisor has separation anxiety. They want to know all your business, they want to be in all your meetings, they want quick reply to emails, they want instant text message responses, all those sort of connections through social media. Bang, 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 constant. It's all very intense and it's all pretty problematic. So when you recognise, and many of you may have done it today, if you recognise that your supervisor is a Chihuahua, what I want you to do is make very clear decisions about which media platforms and interfaces you are going to deploy with your supervisor, and hold to that. So I need you to construct distinct and distinctive spaces for communication with your supervisor and get rid of the rest. I need you to control the attention-seeking behaviour through your selection of media platforms. So if you write with your supervisor, then absolutely tag your supervisor on Twitter or LinkedIn and encourage that collaboration through the work. Congratulate them on the paper, congratulate them on the work, not the person, not the bark, the work. And use multimodality and multimodal choices very early in your candidature. So be clear right at the start about the communication channels and platforms that you're going to communicate with your Chihuahua. Please, please, please avoid Facebook and avoid mobile phone connection, particularly text messages. I need you to be overt and disciplined in these divisions. So state right at the start, and you can use a bit of policy if you like, state at the start, I don't think it's appropriate that a student and a supervisor communicate on Facebook. State that. Similarly with the phone, do that. And policy will help you create those spaces. But most importantly, we need to address emails. Chihuahuas write a lot of emails. And they write really, really long emails. And then once they've written the very, very long email, often sent at 2 or 3 a.m. in the morning, they will then, of course, CC half the population of the world into that email, and they'll blind CC the other half of the population of the world. So remember, their focus is attention. They want attention, and they're suffering from severe spotlight deprivation. So digital communication is just terrific for the Chihuahua Supervisor, because they can all just say, like, everything's great, everything's happening, great, 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 24/7, brilliant. Now, you don't need to go there. So with the emails, you must reply to the emails during office hours. And you need to reply to these War and Peace emails with short replies. Now, you've got to be kind, be nice, but be short. So this is where you start to use phrases like, thank you very much for this information, full stop. Thank you so much. Thank you for your insights. No CCs, no BCCs. So reply to the War and Peace emails with one kind sentence. Keep consistent here. One sentence replies sent during office hours. And you'll find that the behaviour from your Chihuahua Supervisor will start to routinize. Great word there. So you need to control the digital barking, and you do this by responding in short and sharp messages. What you're doing is you're reducing and you're funneling the communication interfaces between you and your supervisor, and only answering the messages temporally during office hours. Now, Vicky McLeod, in a great book called Effective Communication at Work, argued, and it was a great argument, for the importance of routinizing communication. Changed my life, this book was brilliant. Ensuring that what she wants is, she wants us all to do the inner work, and she calls it inner work before we create a communication act. So we do the inner work, so we've handled our business, and then we engage with others. Great stuff. So this means we take responsibility for our own actions. We never name call or insult or belittle, even if the Chihuahua is all churned up with gossip and rumour and interest, corridor. No. So the Chihuahua can be organised by focusing on your thesis. You minimise distraction, get rid of the gossip, you demonstrate engagement and respect in a regular fashion, you ask clarifying questions, and you validate your understanding. So this means you remain calm, you focus on forward actions, and you are evidentially driven. Yep. So with these strategies in place, we're getting you to focus on your empathy rather than your ego. Cool. 2. Do not yell or respond in kind to your Chihuahua Supervisor. The worst combination that I ever see in supervisory relationships is what I describe as the double Chihuahua. Yes, it's a thing. So you've got a supervisor Chihuahua, and yes, you've got a student Chihuahua. And so the student is feeling imposter syndrome, severe spotlight deprivation, and so does the supervisor. So what happens is they bark at each other. incessantly. They just bark at each other. They both want attention. They're trying to work out who's more important, who's significant. And of course, they're not communicating to enable the thesis. They're just barking at each other. So the Chihuahua supervisory behaviour only intensifies if the student mirrors it. So therefore, it's very important for you today, if this is you, you need to do some internal work. You need to address imposter syndrome. In the last series of videos, I did a whole session on the imposter syndrome, but there are great free resources around the world to give you some quick techniques to address that. So you have to address those issues, and you have to retrain yourself, force yourself to only bark, that is, celebrate your fabulousness on social media when you actually have something to celebrate. So you're recalibrating yourself. So if you do a conference presentation or a seminar, bark away, mate, bark away. You publish an article or a book chapter, bark. Have a good focused bark. But what I want you to do is recalibrate. I want you to attach a real achievement, a real output with a bark of excitement. So reorganize yourself. Do not bark because you had a thought. Do not bark because you got a bit of gossip. Don't bark in response to a shiny object. Achieve your goal and then reward yourself with a good focused bark on social media. So this means you are learning to self-manage your issues and your behavior. Don't create a barking frenzy of competitiveness with your own supervisor. I see this, it's a shambles. So address your issues. Focus on intrinsic motivation, silence, reflection. All of this stuff is much more important than extrinsic motivation, talking, and jealousy. 3, validate your supervisor. Yes, I know your supervisor is meant to be caring for you and enabling you and so on. But the Chihuahua supervisor can only read and interpret and understand any issue through their own personal lens. So they can only understand other people through their personal investments. This is so common. There is a very large group of academics who will never be able to park themselves, park their interests until they receive their fair share of attention. So give them that attention. Be gracious. Ask them what they're working on. What are you interested in? What have you been reading this week? Ask them these questions. And then, once they've had their interests and their achievements celebrated, confirmed, acknowledged, so it's occupied space, they then have the space to give you attention and value you and focus on the thesis. So recognize that the Chihuahua supervisor has a space and a context around them that requires constant feeding, constant attention. So give them that attention so we can all then move to other issues. So Max Yoder, I wish it was Yoda, but it's Y-O-D-E-R, it's Yoda, respect. But Max Yoder developed Brené Brown's theory of vulnerability in a really interesting way. He wrote a book called Do Better Work. Really like it. And he asks that all of us start to displace the focus on ourselves. We learn to help others gain confidence, help others reduce anxiety. So when we express vulnerability, we enable the space for others to also do so. He states that vulnerability is, quote, contagious, end of quote. And that means in practice, we all every day start to share ideas before they're ready, ask clarifying questions, and share what you appreciate and what you value in another person. Okay, so if your supervisor is living in threat, okay, telling frightening stories, they're frightened, they're scared, then they're in the threat mindset, and they're never going to get you, let alone themselves, they're never going to get you to an opportunity mindset. Therefore, validate your supervisor. Listen to them. And look, I know this can be grating, the bark can be grating, but what you're doing by respecting them and sitting with them is that you're moving them from seeing threats to seeing opportunities. And this movement starts with your empathy and your vulnerability. 4. Disrupt your Chihuahua's patterns and channel the barking into feedback. Yeah. Ignoring the Chihuahua Supervisor is not an option. But the absolute best way, and this is the number one pick really for the week, the number one strategy to get your Chihuahua Supervisor organised is to provide a very simple, very clear agenda to every meeting. So make it simple, 5 lines numbered, 5 things to do. And you're going to have to print the document out twice because there's no way they'll ever remember to print it out. So print the document out twice. Here it is, and go through the list and tick off each achievement on the agenda. Now they're still going to bark. They're still going to bark, and they're going to require your attention and your reinforcement of the ego. They're going to go off and tell stories and come back, but the agenda will provide the spine, and it'll focus them beyond the self, and it'll bring them back to your thesis, the work. Look, it's really tough when you meet people that are just so people focused, right? Gossip, rumour, endless comparisons between people. But a printed agenda presented every single week with 5 topics to cover, that is the way to solve these problems. Because meetings show the Chihuahua at their absolute worst, okay? Meetings can be difficult and dreadful most of the time. Chihuahuas render meetings completely dysfunctional. So I recommend you read Jen Sander and Renita Thedvel's incredible book, Meeting Ethnography. All the references for these books will be at the end of this post, by the way, but Meeting Ethnography, great book. Actually, I think it's one of the best books I've read this year. Tremendous. And they probe how power is summoned, produced, and enacted through a meeting, and how hierarchies are created and how they're negotiated. So make your supervisory meeting functional. Short, clear agenda, and the Chihuahua will then have space to tell their stories, go off topic, but there's the spine of the business for the day. Now, meetings can help make knowledge, but you have to have a clear agenda. And we finish with 5. Channel their strength for talking to enable your research through sonic media. Here we go. Chihuahua supervisors talk and talk and talk and talk. And there are great things that they can say, that they can offer, that they can contribute. The only problem is it's difficult to actually work out what's the important stuff and what's the rubbish, yeah? Because there's so much non-relevant stuff and gossip that it's sort of masking the high quality information that they're giving you. So while digitization is the Chihuahua's dream, granting them endless likes and comments and engagement, there is a way to use digitization to enable your thesis. And that is, we need to use sonic media. Remember, I've talked about the importance of platform or interface selection. Well, here we go. Firstly, I would record all supervisory meetings. Ask your supervisor if you can do that. They will say yes, they will love this because it shows that you're validating their views, you're listening to them. But what I would do is I would record the session and I would listen to it again and find the nuggets of useful information amid the gossip, right? And this is good because remember, listening is a skill. Listening is a literacy, and this listening as a literacy improves with practice. So learn about critical literacy and discriminative literacy. Now, these are new concepts for me, which I'm working on and learning a great deal about. So it comes from Soren Domatriciu, fascinating scholar, and he argues that, quote, discriminative listening involves listening for more than just facts. You want to hear the speaker's underlying emotions, motivations, and intentions, end of quote. Wow. So the Chihuahua Supervisor has a lot to teach you, and not only about your research topic, but about how to manage stress, how to manage fear, how to understand work, how to understand what is going on in international higher education. So if we make a conscious decision to listen, we learn patience, we learn to remove distractions, and it changes how we engage with the world, because we learn with meaning and with context. But the other great piece of advice I would offer you, and this will change your life and your supervision and your thesis, is that I'd ask your Chihuahua Supervisor to offer sonic feedback on a draft. Now, this sonic function on drafts is highly underutilised. It is possible for all people, including supervisors, to offer in situ audio comments. So on the home tab of Word, select Dictate On in the microphone icon and wait for the red dot to appear. Great. So this will enable the Chihuahua's barking to be focused on your work and feedback instead of random issues. Sonic feedback, brilliant. It means they can speak their commentary in situ, terrific. Now, can I say sonic feedback like this is terrific for so many students and supervisors, particularly for our students with dyslexia. Excuse me. And it is fantastic if you want to provide a bigger narrative or a bigger context, more than what can fit in one of those little track change boxes. Now, Chihuahuas are part of our universities. Our university metrics encourage all of us to celebrate the opening of an envelope, to post how terrific we are. Look at me, look at me, look at me. The problem is, like crying wolf, the really important and fabulous stuff just sort of gets lost in the information cacophony. But the Chihuahua Supervisor and academic provides a reminder for us all about the power and the value of silence, and the power and the value of vulnerability. It's only when we sit in silence, allow intrinsic motivations and personal reflections to emerge, that we start to have gratitude for everything that we are yet to learn, and a vulnerability that we're probably not as good as we think we are, and to continue to learn more. Great research can emerge through vulnerability. So when the Chihuahua is silenced, humility, gratitude, grit, and courage can emerge. And that can transform all of us as humans, let alone as scholars. Now, Devin Kalnav wrote a great book titled Fallibility at Work. They argue about the profound philosophical value of fallibility. Love this. Fallibility provides, quote, a critical quality moment, end of quote. So the Chihuahua, of course, has lost their fallibility, and they've lost, therefore, that critical quality moment, because they're barking with fear or defensiveness or boredom. But we can all make a decision to live differently. You can summon what Patrick King described as intentional communication. And we know we gain so much more from life, not by being tolerant, but by being compassionate. Thank you so much for putting up with my voice this week, and I wish you love, light, and peace. Tea out.